So, good morning to you all, and let me start by thanking you, Ms. Jones, for this, James, for this very generous introduction, and also for having me here today and to let me speak to this audience. I would also like to thank the Heritage Foundation for the very important work you do and for your steadfast support for over many years for the values that NATO holds so dear. I will be quite brief in my introduction, but then I will be more than happy to answer questions and respond to your comments afterwards. Today I will address the issue of why NATO is important, the value of NATO. NATO is important for Europe. That is widely recognized and widely understood. But NATO is also very important for the United States. And let me mention three reasons why NATO is important also for the United States. First, peace and stability in Europe are of vital importance, vital interest to the United States. Second, NATO allies share and support the fundamental values which are at the heart of the American society. And third, NATO allies boost America's military power. So first, NATO was forged in the aftermath of two world wars, which led to the loss of 90 million lives and widespread economic devastation. When we consider NATO's value today, we need to take into account the devastating loss of life and ruinous economic costs of a major war in Europe. For nearly 70 years, NATO has helped to preserve peace and stability in Europe. This has provided the foundation for an unprecedented period of prosperity for all NATO allies, including the United States. Europe and North America together represent half of the world's economic output. And while we now see some disagreements over tariffs, it does not change the fact that Europe and North America are each other's biggest trading partners. So peace and stability in Europe are the foundation for continued prosperity on both sides of the Atlantic. Second, we share fundamental values that we protect and defend together: democracy, individual liberty, and the rule of law. They are the foundations of our free societies. But they are also the foundations of our engagement with the rest of the world. These values are magnets for other countries and lead them to join our alliance. After the Berlin Wall came down, former Warsaw Pact countries and the Baltic states all joined NATO. And more countries aspire to join, and many have already followed. NATO has helped to spread democratic values, free enterprise, and stability to millions of people in Europe. This represents a historic geopolitical shift that has benefited also the United States and the world at large. Third, the third reason why NATO is important for the United States is that NATO allies boost America's military power. They have nearly 2 million service personnel on active duty and cutting-edge capabilities. France and the United Kingdom contribute 30% of NATO's nuclear ballistic missile submarine fleet. America's NATO allies also maintain dual-capable aircraft for nuclear delivery to enhance our deterrence and defense and keep peace. Furthermore, America's NATO allies employ tens of thousands of intelligence personnel, many of them working in close coordination with their US counterparts, giving the United States better eyes and better ears than you would otherwise have. From tracking submarines in the Arctic to identifying terrorists that seek to harm us. NATO allies in Europe host 28 American main operating bases across Europe. These bases in Europe are not only for Europe. They enable US to project power, military power, across the wider Middle East and Africa, providing a clear strategic advantage in the fight against terrorism and other threats. For example, the US Africa Command is based not in Africa, but in Stuttgart, Germany. The 6th Fleet, which operates from the Barents Sea to Antarctica, is headquartered in Naples, Italy. And when US troops are wounded in places like Iraq or Afghanistan, they are flown to quick treatment to Ramstein in Germany. When thinking of the value of NATO to the United States, I'm also reminded of what Secretary Mattis once told me, that never in his entire career had he fought a war without NATO allies at his side. The US never has to fight alone. This week we marked the anniversary of the 9/11 attacks on the United States. After those attacks, NATO invoked our collective defense clause, Article 5, for the first and only time. Since then, thousands, hundreds of thousands of European and Canadian soldiers have fought alongside the United States in Afghanistan. And more than 1,000 have paid the ultimate price. And also today, NATO allies continue to stand with the United States, not only in Afghanistan, but also in the global coalition against ISIS, and in deterring an increasingly assertive Russia. For nearly 7 decades, the United States has been able to call upon its allies, its close allies and friends in NATO. No other power can do that. No other power in the world has so many friends and so many allies as the United States. So NATO supports the prosperity, the values, and the security of the United States. But it is clear that allies need to invest more and better in our shared security. All NATO allies have agreed to stop cuts to defense budgets, to increase spending, and to move spending 2% of GDP on defense by 2024. We are making real progress. Last year, NATO allies across Europe and Canada boosted the defense budgets by a combined of 5.2% in real terms. The biggest increase in a quarter of a century. This year will be the 4th consecutive year of rising defense spending. The trend was down, now the trend is up. But we still have a long way to go. And let there be no mistake, NATO's credibility as an alliance relies on sharing costs of defense fairly. As you know, President Trump has been outspoken on this issue. And I have thanked him for his leadership on defense spending. Since President Trump took office, NATO allies across Europe and Canada have spent an additional 41 billion extra US dollars on defense. At our July summit, all NATO allies agreed to redouble their efforts on defense spending. This will be a main focus of the defense ministers meeting in NATO next month. And we will continue to work intensively with all allies to ensure that we deliver on our pledge. In an uncertain world, we have much more to do as we work together to safeguard the freedom and security of our nearly 1 billion citizens on both sides of the Atlantic. Yes, we have our differences and robust debates, but 2 world wars and the Cold War and the ongoing fight against terrorism have taught us that we are far stronger together than apart. We have always been united in our core collective defense mission. That is why NATO is the most successful and the most valuable alliance in history, because it embodies the vital transatlantic bond, a bond that guarantees our prosperity, our security, and our freedom in Europe and in North America. Thank you so much.